Welcome back to the Other Side of 45's podcast. I'm your host, Randy Black. This podcast is about taking chances, owning my mistakes, addressing generational family cycles and trauma, completing my 50s by 50 list, and my life as a single mother of two Gen Z. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Please subscribe and rate the podcast 5 stars. This episode is entitled, I'm Not Dating Material. Now, I've said on my podcast before that I chose not to date while I was raising my children. Um, that was in part because I did not want to align with the wrong person and it affect my children negatively and causing them unintentional trauma for them and also for me, for all of us. So I have people in my circle who constantly ask me, not shouldn't say constantly, it is not uncommon for them to ask me if I will ever remarry or if I want to date. This is just something that comes up. Not often, though, but it does come up. And it did recently come up. But this was more of a conversation between this young woman, this woman who was about my age, a couple of years older, and then this young man, he's in his 20s. And we were just talking one day, and it came up about dating and getting married. All three of us are single. The woman who's in my age group, she's a divorcee with two daughters, and the young man is currently not dating. Now, her daughters are in their 20s like mine, but they're both married and they do not live at home, so she lives by herself, whereas the young man lives with his mother. So, and she does things by herself. When we were talking about, you know, being single, and she expressed that we talked about being single and being happy. And I told her, well, I'm happy where I am. Um, you have to, choose your own happiness, that kind of conversation. And she agreed. And she says, I do things by myself all the time, but it is more fun to do it with other people. And I don't necessarily agree or disagree with that. It's just whatever works for you. Because for me personally, I do enjoy doing things with other people, but I'm also not opposed to doing things alone. So it's for me, it's like it's a non-issue. It's if that's how you feel, that's great. If that's not how you feel, also, it's just, to me, I think it's more of a personal thing, not necessarily something that you can dispute. Because we're all different. Anywho, I think that this conversation was in the back of my mind when I went for a walk recently. It's been like a month or so. And it just, how memories just pop in your head, especially when I'm out for a morning run or walk. All kind of thoughts it's a way for me to clear my head, but sometimes things come up that jog a memory for me. And I think that this conversation I had with the two of them could contribute to why this particular memory popped up. Anyway, so this memory came about when I was, the last time I was in we're going to call it a casual relationship. And I was in that relationship with this gentleman for about 6 years. Our relationship ended in an argument, during an argument. But before that argument, I felt like the relationship had run its course and I wanted to end it, but I kind of felt it difficult to express how I felt. And I thought that if I kind of just slipped away, that he would just kind of get the hint. What I mean is, like, he would contact me and it was like, hey, let's do the get together. And I was like, nah, I'm busy. I can't, and it wasn't that I was lying. It was just that I was not making an effort to see him. And that was kind of the plan. I thought, well, if I do this enough, he'll just be like, forget this and move on, since we're not in a committed relationship. Well, one day, the last conversation that we had before it ended, he contacted me and I, did my same rigmarole. It had been a couple months since we've seen each other. And he got upset and he was like, I keep contacting you. You're like, you're not making time for me. And he was, I felt like he was pressuring me. He was actually pressuring me. And at the time, I was so stressed. And I was going through a really difficult time with me and my girls. And I really couldn't wrap my head around seeing somebody. I just couldn't do it. I was just going through too much. And although that thought of ending it beforehand, because like I said, this was going through a couple of months, I probably should have just ended it. And I thought about it, but it just, I don't know. Anyway, I wish I had handled it better for sure. But that particular day, I was not in a great headspace. I had told him so. I told him that I was stressed. I told him I was busy. I told him. And I just felt like he wasn't listening, And he just kept asking and asking. And then finally, I just said, you know what? I'm done. Find somebody else. And he immediately apologized. I said, you freaking pressured me. Will you just leave me alone? And he did apologize. And he was like, I don't mean to pressure you. And he did. He just thought that it would work. And then instead, it just made me more upset. He just wasn't listening to me. So we ended it. I ended it. Despite him saying, hey, I'm sorry. I don't mean to pressure you. It's just I haven't seen you in a while and I would like to see you. It was at that point, it was too late. And I had seen something in him that day that just really solidified it for me. And even at that time, I was unable to articulate it where I am today because I really didn't care because he had made me mad. Is that if he had when I went for my walk, I thought he showed absolutely zero interest or care in my life. I am telling you that I am super stressed and I got some horrible things going on right now that I need to deal with. And I need you to just chill. He not one time that he expressed any interest in my life whatsoever. And what I mean by that is I didn't care so much that if he said, well, what's wrong? It just would have meant a lot. And it would have gone a long way if he had just said, you know what? I'm sorry to hear that you're going through a difficult time. Hit me up when you're in a better place. But we had to fight first. And then he apologized when I said, I'm done. So it meant nothing to me at that point because I knew he was only saying it because he didn't want to be done. And that wasn't a good enough reason for me. I do wish that I had been a little bit more forthcoming with him prior to that day and just said, even though I'm not ready for a committed relationship because my children were in high school at the time. And I just didn't. I wasn't ready to seriously date, to be in a committed relationship. The fact of the matter is, even if I was, it was never going to be him. He was a nice guy for sure. He just wasn't the guy for me. He had other things that I didn't like about him, but nothing like red flags. He wasn't abusive of anything, but our personality types just didn't mesh well. It meshed well enough to see each other for 6 years, but that was because we both had an understanding, and up until that point, he respected where I was, and I respected where he was. Anyway, but I want to be clear about something. I am calmly retelling this story because I'm not emotional, but that day we were both upset, and that conversation was not calm. So when I say things like, he kept pressuring me, it was not it was way more aggressive than that. Anyway, it's unimportant. That's why I'm not going to say it the way he said it. I just want to make sure you understand how contentious that conversation was and why I ended up saying, just leave me alone. We're done. It was because of how escalated the conversation had gotten. But I saw him, I want to say maybe 4 years later, and it was during the pandemic. I was working at a retail store. I was working, and he was in the store to buy some water. He did not live in this area. I've lived in this area when we were seeing each other, but he didn't. He lived 30 minutes away. or so. I forget. Yeah, about 30 minutes away. No, actually, it was, anyway, it doesn't matter. Um, he didn't live that far away. I would say about 20 minutes. But I knew he didn't live in this area for him to be where he was. And anyway, so we ran into each other during the pandemic. I know I had on my mask and I wasn't paying attention. He saw and recognized me before I even saw him. And he came up to me and we spoke. It was a very casual, calm conversation. You know, we were catching up. He was asking me about my girls, asking him how he was doing. This was during the Black Lives Matter movement, where a lot of Black men were being gunned down, and I was very concerned about him when I saw him. I was glad to see, but mentally I was wondering how he was doing. Um, he told me about a house. We just caught up. And as the conversation was ending, he said, "I'll call you." And I replied, "You don't have to." And I do wish I had not said that. And I talked to my friend about it because I felt kind of bad because, we were not arguing, and I felt bad because of the way it came across and because of the look on his face. And I thought, oh gosh, I wish I had handled that better. It's just one of those things that you say it before you really get a chance to think it through. And then it comes out and you're like, crap, that's not how I meant it. So what I wish I had the opportunity to say was, I don't want you to feel obligated to just because we ran into each other. I didn't, because for some reason, that's how I felt. When he was like, "Well, I'll call you." And I was like, "I ain't got to do that. Don't even worry about it. We're good." That's how I kind of felt, but it didn't come across. It was like, don't even bother. But even though I don't think I said it with an attitude, but it was the word choice and the look on his face. And I was like, crap. So when I told my friend, she said, "Yeah, it does sound kind of mean." I had already deleted every form of information that I had from him, so I couldn't reach out through email or his telephone number to say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way." And I really do wish I could reach out to him just to apologize, because immediately after he walked off and I thought about it, I felt bad. And he's not someone that I would want to be rude to. He's a relatively good guy, and he really didn't deserve the way I said it. It wasn't like I was loud or mean or anything. I just could have handled that better. But I share this. One of the reasons why I'm sharing this is because I am doing this thing where I'm trying to go into 50 different than I was the first 50 years of my life. And I've been doing that. Was one of the reasons why I have this podcast, is to address some of those things and to be a better version of myself when I turn 50 in January. There's one other person who I would love to address and apologize to in person, because what I did was in person, and therefore the apology should be in person. And this is for something that I did years ago. I was a teenager, but it's just something that has always bothered me, and I really want to address that person. And that's why I'm sharing this story about this man and how I felt kind of bad about how I reacted both times. And I would wish I could apologize to these two people. The other person, I have that person's contact number, and I will see that person and apologize. The second reason why I am sharing this story is because very recently I was joking with my family about dating again, because I was like, you know what? Maybe when I turn 50, I'll date. And I absolutely was joking. But I thought about it, and I was like, would I be open to dating again? And I think about the last conversation, before I saw him during the pandemic, but the last argument that we had that ended it, I think, I don't know. Perhaps not. Perhaps I'm not dating material. Perhaps I'm not a person who needs to even think about such things, because it's been such a long time since I've been in on the dating scene that, and I think I've been single for so long that what concerns me now is having my peace disturbed because there were so many things that I went through to get here. The thought of having somebody to interrupt that really leaves me uneasy. So I don't even know if I'm open to dating. Then I was like, you know what? It's a non-factor anyway. I don't do online dating. Honey, I live in the suburbs. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know what's next for me. It's funny because if you had to ask me, I don't know, just maybe even a year ago, it would have been absolutely not. I would never consider dating again. Absolutely not. But I don't know. Maybe I would. Maybe I would. Maybe if the right person came along. And to me, that's just growth. It's growth. My list is working. Looking at myself and being honest is working because I continue to evolve and be a different version of me that I actually kind of like. And so it just goes back to the theme song of My Life Just Fine. Because whether it happens or not, I'm going to be just fine. And I like what I see. When I'm looking at me, when I'm walking past the mirror, don't stress through the night at a time in my life. Ain't worried about if you feel it. Got my head on straight. I got my vibe right. Ain't gonna let you kill it. You see, I wouldn't change my life. My life's just fine. Meet me on the other side of the 45's podcast, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to rate the podcast 5 stars so others can find it. Your feedback is greatly appreciated.